At home, the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, has welcomed 5,000 Christian pilgrims from nearly 100 nations for its annual celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles, which begins tomorrow evening at En Gedi. The week-long festivities amount to the country's largest yearly tourist event and inject an estimated $16 million into the national economy. Joining me now in the studio to discuss the celebration is ICEJ Media Director David Parsons. Good evening, David.
Good to be with you here.
It's very nice to have you here. Now, the Feast of Tabernacles is one of the most beloved annual events that takes place in the city of Jerusalem. Tell me a little bit about the festivities that you have planned, but also about what inspired the ICEJ to found this event back in 1980.
Well, actually, the Christian celebration of the feast founded the embassy. The Christian embassy here in Jerusalem was established during the first Christian public celebration of the feast in September of 1980, when the last embassies were leaving Jerusalem under threat of an oil embargo. Christians were just gathering for a celebration, a Christian celebration of this biblical feast in which the Gentiles are also allowed to take part in, or invited to take part. And so the embassy has been here ever since, founded out of that, and sponsoring the Christian Sukkot celebration ever since. And the early people involved, the 40 nations or so represented at that feast, were mainly from Western countries who knew something about the tragedy of Christian anti-Semitism, especially in Christian Europe. But over the years, as the event has grown into Israel's largest annual tourist event, it's actually Christians now coming from all over the world, and especially the increase in the past decade or two has been from the global south, from Latin America, Africa, Asia, and this shows the revival there, the growth of the evangelical church, and the growth of support for Israel there.
We're now looking at visuals of the Jerusalem March. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, the Jerusalem March was actually started as an Israeli tradition to sort of show the unity of Jerusalem. We folded in that first year in 1980, asked if we could join, and we quickly became the most colorful and popular part of the event. All the Israelis, they come out to see us now. We're handing out flags and candy to the children. We're dressed in national costumes, and it's really helps the Jewish people, encourages them that they do have friends around the world. And it's also an expectation in the future when the prophet Zechariah says that this will be the most universally celebrated feast or festival, even more than Christmas one day, that we share an expectation of this, and we're just forerunners of that day.
Well, that definitely qualifies as an unparalleled success, really. Yes. Every year it is a success, and this year it seems to be no different. You have about 5,000 celebrants here in the capital. Are you surprised about the number of participants, that there were no dropouts, given the very tenuous situation? Just a few weeks ago, people were talking about this limited U.S. strike on Syria, and it doesn't seem to have affected.
We've been monitoring this situation with Syria very closely ourselves. We have to admit there were some concerns, and we don't know how close we came to a major escalation in the region. But we were praying for the window to stay open for us to come. And we've found out that even in hard times, that's the time our supporters, our followers will show up, because they know they just can't be fair weather friends. So we've had no drop in registration. We've got about our usual 5,000 or more from about 100 countries, and we'll see how many extra show up just wanting to come because they know Israel needs to hear from us now.
Now, you also have some 24 members of 20 different countries' parliaments that came to Jerusalem for the event. Did they come with any kind of a particular message for Israelis, and in addition to the world?
Well, they want to come and tell Israelis that there's not only friends out there at the grassroots level, but in governments, in halls of power around the world. They're also watching the Syria situation, the Iranian nuclear program developments there, with concern, and they want to tell the Israeli people that they're behind them, and they're encouraging, the recent crisis with Syria shows that the Israeli approach of diplomacy combined with a credible military threat doesn't mean you have to go forward with it. It can get some things done, and I believe they have that message. And some of the European Parliament members are coming with a message of more solidarity on the settlement issue.
Despite the great warmth shown to Israelis by visitors to the country, many feel that the country is unfairly villainized in public perception around the world. As friends, is there anything that you could suggest to Israelis as to how more effectively affect people's perceptions about the country?
Look, you have to tell your story, stay on a certain message with the positive talking points about Israel, and you have to be creative with the new social media and such, and I believe there are some very good efforts in this regard to bypass some of the mainstream media, which does tend to be more liberal and biased against Israel, but there's ways for Israel now to, through the internet and videos, hard-hitting but truthful, to get the truth out there, and I think most people will eventually gravitate to that truth, and you have to be quick about it. We see that the lies halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on sometimes, so you have to be prepared and thinking ahead, and I think the Israeli government and Israeli advocates have gotten better at that.
David Parsons, good to have you with us. I want to wish you a happy holiday. Is there a traditional greeting for the Feast of Tabernacles?
Baruch haba b'shem Adonai.
I like that. Very nice, the Hebrew. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a great event.
Thank you.
Thank you.